Hey, what's up everyone, and welcome back to the Beamer Barn. Today we're going to be doing an unboxing, install, and review of Eonon's latest Android 12 radio for the E39. This thing has twice as much storage capacity as it did before, and it comes with wireless CarPlay built in. So I'm going to show you guys all those cool features after we get it unboxed and installed, and then we'll also compare it to the older model as well. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Let's go ahead and get right to work. Now before we get into this unboxing, I'd like to mention the fact that Eonon went and sent me this radio. I think they saw my old video where I installed their older model of this radio in my E39M5 wagon, and they wanted to send me the newer one to compare it, make this video for you guys, and they also gave me a coupon code. So if you guys want to get a little discount, then I'll put that in the description. So now we've got everything unboxed, and as you can see, they put a lot in the package here for you. The radio is the biggest thing here, and we'll go over that in a second, but I want to show you guys the harness, being that it comes with so many different features, and all of these cables are labeled in English, which makes it really easy to install and make modifications in the future. There's things like the CAN bus decoder on here, and also a SIM card slot, because this is a 4G enabled radio, which is really cool. So if you want to grab a SIM card, you can throw that in there. Over here we've got the installation tools, as well as the radio adapter and the manual. And then over here we've got the rest of the accessories. This is the microphone. We have two 4G antennas. One of them is for Wi-Fi connection and one of them is for Bluetooth. You've also got a GPS antenna and then a few USB adapters. I think these are going to be for CarPlay or for doing just power out via USB. The radio itself looks very similar from the front as their previous model, but from the rear you can see it's completely different. The old one was definitely a lot bigger in the rear. This one much more slim, has an HDMI port there in the middle, and then you have the ports for the 4G antennas, radio, and the GPS right there. And otherwise very similar looking from the front, all the same buttons as the old radio. So now let's go ahead and jump into our install, and then we'll also do a sound comparison between this and the factory radio so that you guys can get an idea of what it's going to sound like in your car when you upgrade yours. So we're going to start off by removing the radio, and that's as simple as using a pry bar and just getting behind it to lift it out of its place. What's more important here though is that we're going to need to remove the factory radio bracket, because this gets in the way of installing our Eonon radio. Now you'll have to remove these trim pieces here, and that's going to show you the screws that will allow you to get this frame out of the way. There's 2 on either end of the radio bracket, and then there's 4 on the insides of the radio bracket that need to be removed. I would also recommend removing the trim that's underneath your steering column, right above your knees, because that is going to give you a lot more space to flex the center console and get this radio bracket out of the way. As you'll be able to see in a moment, I kind of broke mine a little bit, but it was kind of already broken to begin with, and I was able to fix it later with a little bit of epoxy. You won't be able to tell with the trim reinstalled. So just a quick tip, and you don't need to fully remove your dashboard pieces. You can just kind of finagle it out like I did there, and that way you'll save a lot of time for this installation. Now in the box, we're going to use these mounting brackets, and these are going to adapt the fitment for our new radio. They just simply bolt into the sides of the dash here, and they do have multiple mounting holes, so you have some adjustment in getting the radio to sit correctly in your dashboard. Next up, we're going to install our antennas. The two ones that I have here are the 4G antennas. And what's nice is that these come preloaded with double-sided tape. So you can go ahead and stick them anywhere underneath the dashboard. Ideally, you don't want them to be covered by anything metal because that might hinder or interfere with the reception. And then here you can see the GPS antenna as well. I'm just going to tuck it in behind the radio because there's not a lot of metal back here, so we don't have to worry about so much interference. The radio harness does come with two connectors, at least mine did, and you'll want to use the one that's appropriate for your car. It does a great job of locking into the factory harness, and then you go and just shove all those big modules and connectors into the back of that radio well, and you should be left with just a few connections for the radio itself. After that, we can just plug the connectors into the back of the radio, and everything is labeled so you can't mix anything up. Alright, so we've got the radio installed and booted up, and I've been playing around with it for a little bit. It's just as simple to install as my Eonon radio in my E39A12S-6G wagon, but it's a little bit slimmer, so there's more room in the back to shove all those accessories. And the biggest thing that I'm noticing now that I'm playing with it is that it is much faster than the old radio. So to give you some comparison, the old radio I think clocked in at 1.4 or 1.6 gigahertz. This one is at 1.8 gigahertz with a 2.0 gigahertz overclock, and it has 6 gigabytes of RAM compared to either the 2 gigabytes or the 3 gigabytes that you could get in the older version. That combined with 64 gigs of storage instead of the 32 gigs on the old radio makes this thing overall more powerful in every dimension. And you start to feel that once you start messing around with things like the Android Auto. And that's really cool because it's a completely wireless Android Auto experience. You see here it's turning on the Wi-Fi for Android Auto, and the downside is that you cannot use Wi-Fi on this radio at the same time as the Android Auto connection, but you have to make sacrifices. Yes, I was jamming out to a little bit of Drake there, but you get all the normal Android Auto apps, and if this was an iPhone connection, I'm sure we would have flawless CarPlay apps as well. This is also the latest Android 12 operating system. I think they're up to like 13, 14, or 15 for the phones, but this is as new as it gets on these radios, and I'll say that it's definitely a lot faster, running a little bit lighter, leaner than the old operating system. So all those things combined make this a better experience. You've got your apps right here. You can see you probably want to like preload some things on the computer. That way when you're out driving, you don't need to have an internet connection. But you have all sorts of customization options here. You can integrate this into the Torque app, which is a OBD scanner which goes into your OBD port, and it'll give you all sorts of metrics here. You can also use the radio, you can use phone mirroring, there's all sorts of features, and you'll be able to check that out in the description below. I'm not going to waste your time describing all the different functions of this radio, but I will say that I love the functionality and it looks great. You'll see at night that these lights here, they actually match the glow as the rest of the instrument panel and up here as well. So you get nice orange lights. You can actually customize the brightness, customize the color hue as well. You can customize everything about the operating system because it is Android. If you want to have a background, you can put a background. So now let's go ahead and do an audio comparison of the new radio compared to the old one. So here we have the factory radio, and as you can see, this does not come with an aux connector from factory. So I'm using a cassette radio adapter, and that's basically as good as it gets for this radio here, unless you have a newer one and you might be able to get like an iPod connection or something. But why don't I go ahead and just show you guys what this sounds like. Alrighty guys, now a quick editor's note here. Unfortunately, my camera microphone was not able to pick up the sound differences between the new and the old radio. Subjectively to my ears, I will say it sounds better. And of course, the audio quality coming out of that cassette player is going to be much worse than going through Bluetooth or Wi-Fi like our new radio has. Also, some things to note are that this radio does have a built-in speaker tester, so you can switch the audio from left to right side and figure out if your speakers sound differently from left to right. Turns out one of my speakers is blown. And also you have an audio EQ adjuster, so you can adjust your audio levels to your preferences, and that's a really cool feature of this radio as well. All right, now our install is complete, and I have to mention that I didn't install all the accessories. I still have the USB cables and the microphone here, but what I realized after taking a quick phone call through the Android Auto on the radio is that you don't need this microphone installed in order to be able to take a call, in order for it to work, because it has a built-in microphone already in the radio. The USB connectors, you really only need these if you want, I think, some slow charging capability in your glove box, and also the wired CarPlay you can do as well in case you want to use Wi-Fi at the same time as your CarPlay or Android Auto. But besides that, this thing is fully functional. I've already been jamming out, like I said, here in the garage, and I'm very pleased with the install. It is a little bit crooked sitting in the dashboard, I have to say, but I think you can easily get this tilted back down because you do have adjustment in those brackets that install inside of the dashboard. The harness itself allows you to add in extra speaker components or other features, which again, there's so many things you can do with this radio. I'll put the links down below. You guys can check it out for yourself. So if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like or a comment down below. Subscribe to our channel if you're new and you haven't yet. And as always, I hope you guys have an amazing day. We'll see you next time.